Will it be number 8 for Lewis Hamilton? Who are the dark horses for 2021? We have Raikkonen, Alonso, and Schumacher. I know, don't worry, it's 2021. You might think it's 2003, 2004. We got the rules. We'll have a look at the preview. We've got some history and some trivia for you. And it is a brand new season of the world of Formula One from Gary Formato and myself, Sasha Martinengo. Welcome. This is the F1 PitBox. This is the F1 PitBox with Sasha Martinengo and Gary Formato. Oh, welcome everybody. It is so great to be back. Another season of Formula One, the 71st, Gary. Can you believe it? 23 races, if we have them all. The longest season in the history of the world of Formula One. I don't know about you, but I'm more amped about the season, I think, than for anything for a long time.
Listen, I think it is going to be a good season. There's going to be, I think it's going to be more competitive. Let's hope so. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to beat Mercedes, but we'll get to that later. But for sure, it's going to be a more competitive season. I think there's certainly going to be a couple of teams that weren't in it this year. Lots of new drivers, lots of driver changes. It's always an exciting thing in Formula One to see all that sort of pan out and see how everyone's going to get going. But definitely going to be an exciting season. And let's hope we get through all the races.
Yeah, let's hope so as well. Only time will tell. This is the F1 PitBox. Throughout the whole season, we're going to keep you updated with all of the news, everything that is happening in the world of Formula One. And of course, we want you to interact with us as well. So if you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, please send through comments, send through questions. We'd love to try and interact and answer those questions for you as well. Plus, we've got a little bit of trivia for you as well coming up during the course of the show. But I think, Gary, the first thing is let's have a look at this calendar. 21 races. It's strange. First race, Bahrain, which was the last race of the season as well.
Yeah.
And, my friend Barry Ferreira was telling me, saying that every time a season has started in Bahrain, Fernando Alonso's finished on the podium. So some people love those kind of stats. But looking at this calendar, is anything I don't know, any surprises to you or anything that should be there or shouldn't be there?
Well, okay, I think first of all, the fact we're going back to Imola is great.
Yeah.
The fact we're going back to Portimao in Portugal is fantastic. We've got the Grand Prix at Zandvoort, which we never got to do last year.
I know. Gosh.
So that's been eagerly anticipated. And then, of course, Saudi Arabia, which they've apparently built one of the fastest street circuits in the world. We thought Baku was crazy, but apparently this is even more crazy. So I'm just excited to see those new circuits on the calendar. And as I said, I'm sure we're going to get to them. And I think it's going to be great.
I think the one thing that really excites me is hopefully, listen, we don't have any spectators at the moment at circuits, but Zandvoort, September. Can you imagine Holland and the orange just being there? I think that's got to be the most exciting Grand Prix I'm waiting for.
When you've got a Grand Prix and you've got a contender, from that country, like you've got Max Verstappen for that particular Grand Prix, it's something unbelievable. And also the Dutch fans have been unreal in terms of motorsport. Look, you go back to A1 Grand Prix, which is A1 Grand Prix was
exactly
whatever it was, but they were the biggest supporters out there for their team. So, I think it's going to be absolutely huge. And the changes they've done to the circuit, what they've built there looks great on paper and so on. So, we wait and see what happens.
Now, I must just tell you, I don't know, have you been to Zandvoort?
I haven't been to Zandvoort.
Okay, so 2 years ago, I was in Holland, went to go and visit my daughter, and I said to her, come, we're getting on a train, and I think it was 40 minutes, and we got to Zandvoort. It is this tiny little village, Gary, it's got this magnificent circuit, but you come out of the train station, which is the size of this room that we're sitting in, and you turn right and you walk about a kilometer, and that's where the track is. But the village itself, and I was sitting there going, where are the people going to stay?
It's going to be a big party.
Oh,
I don't think I'm going to sleep anyway. So.
Well, Amsterdam or Holland is always a party. So listen, before we get to the seriousness of Formula One discussions, the past month has been a pretty tough time for motorsport fans and specifically in the world of Formula One. We have lost 3 iconic people in the world of motorsport and, of course, in Formula One. The first one we'll talk about is Sabine Schmitz. And Sabine, of course, most people will know her from Top Gear. She was the queen of the Nürburgring, Gary. I mean, I think she did more laps around the Nürburgring than anybody else, and even challenged Jeremy Clarkson in a Jaguar, supercharged Jaguar, to go faster in a Ford Transit van. And I think she missed it out by 2 or 3 seconds. I had the privilege of working with her when she was here in South Africa for one of the Top Gear live festivals. Just a stunning, charming lady. Passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 51. Battled with cancer, and strangely enough, we actually wanted to talk to her before the beginning of the season last year in 2020, but she had been pretty ill. So, to Sabine, and her family, very, very sorely missed, and rest in peace. In the last week, Gary, Johnny Dumfries. For those who know Formula One quite well, will remember the name. He was Ayrton Senna's teammate back in 1986. And he was just such a likable guy. You just sat there and went, this, number one, he had the coolest surname.
Yeah. Earl of Dumfries. Yeah.
The Earl of Dumfries. Yeah. And eventually, just so humble, changed his name to John Butte. So he didn't want to have all of that aristocracy amongst him as well. But Gary, a lot of people don't remember, it didn't have a great time in Formula One. It's just a season that didn't work. But he did win Le Mans.
He won Le Mans, had a decent sports car career after Formula One. But I mean, back in the day, I think you remember him for being the first car with a onboard camera in Formula One. And as you quite rightly said, I think to be teammates with Senna at that point in time was always going to be difficult. First season in Formula One, with the cars they were driving in those days, it's hugely powerful and difficult cars to drive. Things may have turned out different if he hadn't had Senna as his teammate. But I listened to his podcast a couple of weeks ago, in fact, on Beyond the Grid, and just was really, really interesting listening. So, I was quite sort of upset to hear Johnny Dumfries.
Very, very saddened as well, and a young man as well. And then the voice of Formula One. I think anybody who's watched Formula One in the last 20 years or 25 years, because, that's he stopped in 2001, passed away at the age of 97, Gary Murray Walker. I can't find words besides just he was Mr. Formula One when it came to commentating.
No, there's absolutely no doubt. And not only just Formula One. It was World Grand Prix motorcycles, touring cars, whatever he did. He just did just fantastically well, and just such passion. And I think for me, apart from saying yes, he's the voice of Formula One, I think you look at a life and you say, there's a life lived with pure passion.
Correct.
Did what he needed to do, and just garnered so much respect from everybody in all corners of the motorsport world, no matter where you were. Just an unbelievable life.
And exactly, and yes, he was English, but he was loved by the French, the Italians, the Germans, the everybody knew who Murray Walker was and what he meant to the world of Formula One. And strangely enough, I still have his telephone number in my phone, and I used to phone him every year on his birthday, and he never used to know who the hell I was, but I'd say, Murray, happy birthday. But he'll be sorely missed, but what a life, what a career Murray Walker had. And, there are all of the Chuck Norris jokes, and you can go and search Chuck Norris. Do yourself a favor. If you don't know much about Murray Walker, just go and look up Murrayisms on Google. Just type in Murrayisms, and you will see some of the most classic quotes about the life of Murray Walker. May they all rest in peace. And they will never, ever be forgotten in the world of motorsport and Formula One. Okay, let's take you back in time with a little bit of trivia. This is Formula One. So, Gary, we did it a few times last year, testing people's general knowledge when it comes to the world of Formula One, because I think the great thing about motorsport, and we're in the 71st year, you can always learn. There's just so much, to learn about the world of Formula One. So we got two questions for you, and we'd like you to answer on our either the Facebook page or on YouTube, or we'll give you the WhatsApp line. There it is. It's on your screen, which is a South African number. So type in +27 73879 4498. Now, first question, Gary's actually got a fabulous story about this, which he'll tell you when we give the answer a little bit later on in the program. But today is March the 25th, which is, by the way, it's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, Serge.
There we go. It's a significant date in the world of Formula One because on this day in 1984, there was a young driver who made his debut and competed in Formula One for the first time. So that's your first question. Who was the person in 1984 on March the 25th who made his debut in the world of Formula One? Okay, that's your first question. Our second question, which I think is slightly easier. Who is the only posthumous Formula One world champion? Okay, who is the only posthumous Formula One world champion? So, first question, who made his debut March the 25th, 1984? We won't tell you where. You try and figure that out. And who was the first posthumous Formula One world champion? Use the WhatsApp line if you want to. Otherwise, you can use comments on Facebook or otherwise YouTube. Lots of new rule changes for the world of 2021. I think let's get into those. All right. So, Gary, 2021, this was meant to be the year of the major rule change. Yeah. But this year they've sort of adapted things.
Well, they had to. I mean, from last year, obviously COVID hit us and, they changed everything for everybody. So Formula One obviously wasn't unscathed in the whole situation. So they've obviously postponed the rule changes. Of course, the rule changes it's a lot of cash spend, et cetera, et cetera. But now, this coincides with the budget cap, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're not seeing all of it. But nonetheless, let's hope it's enough to give us somewhat of a change up at the front and enough of a change for the engineers and designers of the teams who got stuck into and perhaps give us something different this year.
All right, let me just turn the volume off on the phone here because I think there's lots of messages coming through as well. Okay, let's talk about some of them. Let's pull up a graphic of some of the rule changes that we are looking at. Number one, DAS, okay, which is the dual axis steering system innovated by Mercedes-Benz. That's gone. Just something about that, Gary. When a team is so far ahead and can actually allow resources to go and create something like a DAS, it just shows you that they are not particularly concerned about anything else.
Well, exactly. First of all, a mega team. When DAS was developed, you must remember it was still in the period where they could spend what they needed to spend and get things done. But it was, just to speak about it a little bit. I mean, when you talk about something that could change the toes and the camber angles or whatever you want to do, for a car to preserve the tires, generate more straight line speed, and then put it back to a setting where you're going to generate the maximum grip.
Incredible.
I mean, it sounds quite simple, but and it's never been done before. Throughout the ages of motor racing, it never been done before. They introduced it last year, and of course, we all knew it was something that was probably going to be banned sooner than later. They had it last year, and that was the end of that. But I mean, what a great innovation it was!
Unbelievable. I mean, it just reminded me of McLaren. You remember where they had the three pedals for Mika Hakkinen? That kind of thing. So DAS is out. The cars are slightly heavier this year. It's only about 3 or 4 kilograms. Tires. Pirelli used the term robust, which one can only assume that they are going to be slightly harder. We have the C1 to the C5 compound of tires, but all of them are going to be slightly harder. So the softest compound will most probably be similar to the soft that we had of last year. We'll get to testing a little bit later. That's the one thing. The budget cap, okay, is something where it's introduced this year, Gary. It's $145 million, okay, which all of the teams are allowed to use but it actually works out to about $147.5 million what they can use. And I'd like the camera just to come back to me, because this is the document on the budget cap. Okay, let me just tell you, if you just think that this is simple, that anything in Formula One is simple, it is not. This is double-sided paper. This is 46 pages, okay, explaining the budget cap. It's not that simple. However, it is introduced, and I think it is for the benefit of the sport, Gary. I think everyone should be able to have a fairer chance.
There's no doubt about that, to get it all pinned down and under control is always going to be the big thing. This has been talked about for many years.
Correct.
You've also got to say that the costs have spiraled out of control. It's always an expensive sport and what have you, but just in the last couple of years, it's just been absolutely crazy. I think probably since the hybrid era, things have just gone mad.
Hello.
So there's no, for a new team to come in like Haas, for example. I mean, yes, you've got to actually commend them for the job that they've done. Through that era, spending probably 30% of what other teams, the bigger teams, are spending, and to keep themselves in the game, keep themselves alive was no mean feat. But I think now you've got a team like that's got more of a chance. But also, I think presenting them the opportunities to tie up with other teams and people sort of using their resources a little bit differently. I mean, Ferrari have announced their hypercar program going back to Le Mans in a couple of years' time, so they've allocated a lot of resource to that. So there's change. But so on the one hand, you've got a budget cap, which is great for Formula One in terms of saving money, but also it's actually benefited other areas of the sport now, where you've got now Ferrari and hypercar racing and so forth. So not all bad at all.
I think it's such a significant and brilliant point, because all of a sudden, yes, there are now these hypercar racing. Maybe there's even more that goes into their GT3 of the various organizations that are involved. So that's I think it's great news. As I say, this is a document that I've been studying and reading a bit.
I'm glad you're studying it.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm good at reading. I'm not very good at absorbing, but I'm very good at reading as well. But the major change when it comes to this year's rules in terms of Formula One has got to be the floor design. Okay, so what they have done, and we've got a couple of pictures over here. As you can see in the graphic, the dotted areas on the top of your screen, that area is now being cut away. So it's like a little triangle that's been cut away. And at the bottom of your screen, where there's the no entry sign, you can't have all of these little nodules that go along and allow for the airflow. So it's twofold in this, Gary. That what they're trying to do is, through the aerodynamics, is to get the cars to be able to follow each other better. And I hate to say this, I've heard this for the last 20 years. Theoretically, these things are fantastic, but engineers are much cleverer, and they manage to work things out. But hopefully this will allow cars to follow.
And listen, it's important. And as you said, but remember now, the people that are producing these rules, we've got Ross Brawn in there. There's a he comes from running a team. I mean, we know Ferrari, Mercedes won world championships. I mean, how many of them? 8 world championships, I think he's won. And he understands also what's required, understands it's a show, and I think what Formula One needs from an owner point of view, from a promoter point of view.
Yeah.
So let's hope they get it right. But as you said, the engineers are quite smart, and but all those little intricate bits and pieces you saw in those cars, that's where all that the budget cap, that sort of thing, sorts that kind of stuff out. Because as you said, it's a resource for this, a resource for that, a resource for everything else.
Correct.
So to spend time on the little bits and pieces, for a team like Haas, possibly doesn't have that now. It's certainly, we would hope anyway, on paper, going to narrow the gap.
It narrows as well. We've got a picture of the McLaren car also from the top, just to have a look to see. Okay, that's Giorgio Piolis, but there we go. There's the McLaren car. The cars appear to be longer. 2020 have the tapered floor, so you can see that it is slightly narrow, and it sort of bends in. Narrower nose. Okay, floor slots are banned. Those are what we were talking about. And bulges accommodate the Mercedes power unit, because they do have that as well. The one thing about the McLaren, and also the rule changes for this year, Gary, is that the diffuser at the back of the car, and we don't have a picture of it, but just to explain it, it has been reduced by 50 mils, which is 5 centimeters. But McLaren, as McLaren usually are, been very, very clever. They've reduced it by 50 mils, but they've bent it. So it's not against the rules of what they're actually doing, and it seems to have some kind of a benefit. But we'll talk about testing in a short while. That's the flaw and error. The other major point which we did see, and for those who maybe been watching a little bit of Drive to Survive, and I've only watched the first episode and a bit, and you just sit there and go, when everyone saw the Racing Point come out last year, everyone scratched their heads and went, there's a little bit of copying. That is no longer allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you thought it wasn't there too, but now it's like really
now they've really outlawed it. We've got a picture of the Aston Martin, which is a new team, which is basically the Racing Point, and that is basically compared to what Mercedes. They're going to have the rear suspension and gearbox from Mercedes. However, Gary, they've had to design it themselves. Whereas I'm not saying that they didn't design it themselves last year, but it was incredibly similar to Mercedes.
Even if you were going to get a penalty for whatever reason last year, the amount of data that you would have accrued, by having a car that's now so much better than what you had before. I mean, you've now got such a great starting base point for 2021. So, you can only expect them to be a lot quicker, and they've got all that information now. So if they're clever enough, they would have been able to use it to push themselves a bit forward.
For 400,000 euros, maybe worth the effort.
No, 100%.
Don't forget McLaren got fined 100 million.
Yeah, 400,000 euros is peanuts in that game. Really. So you pay it gladly.
Unbelievable. Okay, so that's looking a little bit at what is happening when it comes to our rules and changes. Before we get into testing and other things, we've got 3 new drivers, Gary, on the grid for Formula One. So there we go. Nikita Mazepin, Mick Schumacher, and Yuki Tsunoda. These are our 3 brand new drivers for Formula One. We'll talk about them when we go into the teams. But I think we have to have a lot of emphasis just on the Schumacher name, returning to the world of Formula One. He's also using MSC as his initials, which is quite extraordinary, because you just remember it being Michael Schumacher, and he's come out and said that he wants to do that in honor of his father. He's chosen the number 447 on his car. The 4, I think, was his first racing number. 7 was for his dad's championship results as well. But what kind of pressure is the guy under, Gary?
I think he couldn't be in a better place. If I look at back in his career, the second season he's been lightning. Won the GP2 championship last year, I think strategically as well. Did very, very well with it. So I think a team like Haas this year, I think a perfect opportunity for him to do. So I wouldn't expect Mick Schumacher to go out and be blazing. And I've got to be totally honest about that. I might be wrong, but this is just my view on it. But I think certainly a very, very quick racing drive, but I do think needs a bit of time to get into the groove, so to speak. And I think certainly in the right place. So let's see how it goes. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he goes out there and actually absolutely, puts that car in places where it shouldn't be. And remember, it's not a winning car. He's just got to get out there. Listen, forget about the media pressure and all the sort of emotional connection and all the stuff that goes with it. I think he knows what the job is. By now, he knows what he needs in a team and from a car to get going. And I think next year is probably when we'll see the real Mick Schumacher in Formula One.
Yeah, I must say, we'll talk about him when we go through all of the teams in a short while. I don't believe, and fitness is massive amongst all of the drivers, I don't believe there's anybody fitter than Mick Schumacher. I've watched this guy tirelessly. He just he's superhuman.
No, look, I mean,
he's unbelievable.
And even if he's not, even if he's the same as everybody else, he's publicized it. He's used it to his advantage. I think even if it's just to put a bit of use it as his emotional tactics, a bit of technical warfare against everybody else. To say that I'm arrived and here. And he's grown up with his dad. Remember, yes, his dad is in an unfortunate position now, but after his career, world championship for years, Michael Schumacher took that whole part of the game to a whole new level. But I think everybody's kind of caught up. But yes, he's right there. He's in it. Yeah. But more importantly is going to be, as I said, the racecraft, the getting to be able to set up the car and work out what he needs from Formula One to be able to shape.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we go through all of the teams in a few moments as well. Lots of entries coming through for our trivia. So, we'll give you those questions again in a short while. Now, the $500 million question. Testing 2021 happened last week, Gary. 3 days of testing in Bahrain. This is the analysis that we've been given from Formula One. The fastest they're saying out of everything, Red Bull, Mercedes half a second, McLaren right up there, Aston, Alpine, Alfa Tauri, Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Haas, and Williams. Now, Gary, I watched that testing tirelessly. I sat and I had my F1 TV open and I was watching and I was trying to make notes of times and figuring out who's got tires, what tires they're on. It is the most difficult thing to analyze is this 3 day of testing that they have.
It's very difficult because, no one's going to want to give away anything that they have. If they've arrived there with a good package and the car's quick out the box, people are going to realize it and they're going to back it off a little bit. So it's a game of cat and mouse right now. And of course, we also know that by the time they get to this weekend's Grand Prix, there's a couple of other new things on those cars as well that they didn't have at the preseason testing. But it is always difficult. But go look for a couple of things: who's quick out of the box, who's reliable, and who's looking after tires, etc. The best. That's what you can look out for. That's all you can really take from the test. Right now.
So just a couple of things that I picked up on testing day one, and yes, it's not because I'm wearing an Alfa Romeo jacket. Kimi Raikkonen went out there, Gary, within 5 minutes or whatever, posted a time. It was quick. It took the rest of the teams close to 2 hours to get to his time, and yes, of course, during the course of the afternoon, the time went down the timesheets, but. If a car comes out of the blocks and is pretty quick, don't forget, Alfa Romeo, Haas, and Ferrari had a dismal 2020. So to see one of the Ferrari-powered cars going out there and doing something was pretty impressive.
Look, and just touching on last year, I think you got to believe that they've got their power back for whatever reason. Whatever the reason was, they've got power back in the back of those Ferrari-powered cars. But remember to go and bang in a time right at the beginning of the session. The track is green. People have been out of the cars for a long time. That says something. You may have something underneath you, which is quite exciting. And the fact that it took the whole day for everybody else to catch up, I think tells you a bit of a story. So let's see. Let's hope it is the case. For Kimi to have been able to do that as well. He's quick, but you can't expect Kimi at 41 years old to be as quick as, say, for example, a Max Verstappen or what have you. So the car must be good.
Yeah, and listen, I'm glad you brought up Max because, and we'll talk about it when we go to the teams as well. But Max. You put him into that car, man, he just was out there. He was on the pace all of the time. These are the fastest laps, preseason testing per driver. Now, excuse me, free practice 1 last year, Gary, in Bahrain, the guys were doing 129s. The cars are meant to be heavier and slower and less aero for this year. They're doing 28s.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what Max did with a Honda engine. Yuki Tsunoda, Honda engine, right behind there.
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz, Ferrari, all of a sudden, that's looking good. Alfa Romeo, Ferrari. Mercedes, not so fantastic over the course of the testing. But Max Verstappen just showed that, this is a guy, he has to go out there and do something special this year.
Listen, it's a big year for him. I think, Max, the only thing on Max's side right now is he's still young. And he's been in Formula 1 for a long time and he's still a young driver, which is great for him. Because, and listen, he's a world champion, no doubt.
Yeah.
There's ability there, there's everything there. It's just, has he got the car to do it now? So this suggests that he's got definitely a better car than last year. But of course, we can only wait until the Grand Prix weekend to see what actually happens in qualifying on Saturday afternoon.
I think that's it. We got one more. I mean, these are those are the stats of the drivers, and then of course we got the testing by team as well. Again, Honda, Ferrari, Mercedes. And I agree with you, Gary. We will only know how fast these cars are on Saturday afternoon qualifying.
Absolutely.
That's it. No mistakes, nothing like that. That's the first time we are going to know anything. Now, sure. Listen, thanks very much. So many comments coming through. And can't say hello to everybody, but great to have you along. Thanks very much for watching us on Facebook, YouTube, on your phone, on your laptop, wherever it is. let's get back to our general knowledge for you. You can comment on the page. Otherwise, we've got a WhatsApp line as well, and there's a couple of them coming through there. This is a Formula One WhatsApp line. Okay, so you can use this for anything that you want Formula One related. We can include you into our group and keep you updated with what's going on when it comes to the F1 PitBox. Those two questions are: March the 25th, which is today, significant because in 1984, a young driver made his debut in the world of Formula One. Who was he? And our second question: who is the only posthumous Formula One world champion? Those are your two questions. Get them through now. Lots of correct ones coming through, and we will give you those answers and go through all of the correct ones in a short while. But now it is time. Let us get into the teams and the drivers for Formula One 2021. All right, Gary, we're going to go alphabetically because I think it's the easiest way to do it. Starting off with Alfa Romeo, and of course they have their new car, which is called the C41, and you can see that is the one at the top compared to the one at the bottom. You can see the front nose is very, very different. Keeping the same drivers, Gary, Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi. And I know that I've been a little bit critical of Giovinazzi, but I'm warming to the kid, and I'm hoping that he has a great season. But I must say, I was surprised that Mick Schumacher wasn't put into Alfa Romeo and moved into Haas. I mean, in my mind, I just sit there and go, who better to learn from than from Kimi Raikkonen?
Yeah, look, it may have been a good thing, but as I said just now, speaking about Mick Schumacher, I think he's in the perfect place for himself, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it wasn't also, negotiated and put in place. But, Giovinazzi, it's funny you said it, and I laughed when you said it, because I was obviously having a good look at what he's been doing. He qualified well last year. He out-qualified Raikkonen a number of times. He hasn't been all that bad. So you kind of say to yourself, maybe there's a guy to hang on to, because they put so much time and effort into Giovinazzi, his Ferrari. Correct. And the Fiat group, they put so much time into him. He's almost, I think, now at the point where this year should be his year. And, Kimi being the age that he is, and more than likely his last year or second last year in Formula One at the best. But Giovinazzi this year has to come out the box firing. He's got everything he needs now. He's got the experience. He was quick on occasion.
He was.
It's time for him to deliver. So this is Giovinazzi's year in that team.
I agree with you. And I think also it just shows you how good Kimi Raikkonen still is.
Yeah.
He may be 41. We've got Alonso coming back.
Yeah,
Raikkonen's a world champion.
Yeah,
Gary, and I mean, Raikkonen is one of the greats of Formula One. So it just shows you how good he is. So as you say, I agree. All of a sudden, I'm warming to Giovinazzi, and if I looked at last year or whatever, he's gotten close. He's racing a lot better with Kimi Raikkonen, and I think he's got all of the materials now to go out there and shine.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. So let's see. I hope it works out for him. I really do, because I'm actually, as you said, kind of starting to like the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there we go. The Alfa Romeo drivers. I don't even know. Did the picture come up? I'm sure it did. Of Kimi Raikkonen and Giovinazzi. Oh, there we go. There's the car, and that's Alfa Romeo for 2021. The C41. There are two drivers. 41-year-old Kimi Raikkonen and a 27-year-old Antonio Giovinazzi. Fantastic. Our next team, the AlphaTauri team with the AT02, and car looks spectacular. Really looks cool when it's out on circuit as well. And you can see, I mean, those wings, just that front wing is just so completely different to last year. Car looked decent in testing. It's got the Honda power, and we might as well start talking about a little bit of that Honda power, Gary, because it's their last year in Formula One for the foreseeable future. We know that Red Bull are going to take over the IP and continue with that power unit going forward. They're going to go full beans. They're going to give the best in terms of the regulation spec engine to AlphaTauri and Red Bull to try and maximize every single thing that they can.
Of course they are. And I think, the fact that Honda just stayed in just long enough to be able to have given Tsunoda the opportunity, because let's be honest, it was a Honda protege and they brought him up to the ranks. So great to see him in there. But I just want to touch on Tsunoda in testing. I mean,
Yes.
It was lightning in testing.
Unbelievable.
Absolute lightning. So the car, as you said, I think looks decent, but he looks pretty hot. So I think we could have somebody very exciting in Tsunoda, very small,
Yes.
compact little drivers, which is what you need in Formula One. They may have a lot of opportunity there. And what a great pairing. Gasly, I think, is firing on all cylinders. I think it was the best thing that ever happened to him for him to be able to be knocked back to Alpha Tauri.
And he's a winner.
He's a winner, exactly, a Grand Prix winner. So they've got a great lineup there, and I think one of the most exciting lineups out there. You've got this rookie and Gasly also. Where's he going to go in the future? What's he going to do this year? This is going to.
He's a hot ticket.
Absolutely.
Both of them are.
No
now, the one thing, Gary, you mentioned, yes, Yuki Tsunoda. Okay, he's tiny.
Yeah,
we've seen in the last 15 years, Gary, all of a sudden racing drivers from 5'6", all of a sudden now they're at 6 foot, 6'1".
Yeah.
George Russell's nearly 6'2". This guy's 5'2" and he's 50 kilograms.
Yeah,
as a racing driver, ballast. They have to have a minimum weight of 749 kilograms in that car. Yes, they measure and everything is perfect. But if you get to a track and all of a sudden you need a little bit more weight on the front right, they must have got 15, 16, 20 kilograms to play with just in Yuki Tsunoda's car because of his size.
Well, you can just balance everything out perfectly. That's
brilliant.
That's where it is. I mean, I think back to Benetton with Wirtz and Fisichella, and there was always Wirtz's big issues. He couldn't put the ballast where he wanted to. So this has been an age-old thing. But as you quite rightly said, the fact that they've increased the weight over the years, made the cockpits bigger over the years, it's allowed quicker, taller drivers into the game.
Yeah.
And there was a time when you just weren't you're gonna battle if you're tall.
Correct.
But Tsunoda just happens to be short, and he's the right size. He's what every designer would like in a racing driver. They get in the way as far as the designers are concerned. And he's as small as he can be, but also looks like he can pedal the thing. So
sure, I tell you, great. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Yuki Tsunoda. He's my rookie of the year already. Yeah. We haven't even started. Okay, there we go. Our next team, of course, is, Pierre Gasly we've spoken about. He is a winner and also just fantastic racing driver. Our next team is Alpine. Okay, and I'm sure you're going to have many, oh, sorry, that's the Haas car. That's my fault. I sent the wrong graphic. There's the Alpine. There we go. The Alpine, of course, which is Renault. Great to have them back. Lovely color scheme. Before we get on to the drivers, Gary, I was a little bit surprised to see Cyril Abiteboul get the bullet.
No, surprised, but not upset. I think I'll be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Davide Brivio is now in
brilliant.
That position. And look at what he did for Suzuki, and just look at what he's done in motorcycle racing over the years. Many world championships, Valentino Rossi and everybody moving over to four wheels now. But I think the concept remains the same in terms of running a team and what you need to do it. So I don't expect Alpine to be consistent front runners this year. I do suspect that you may see a podium out of them somewhere along the line. But I think next year, again, it's going to be a building year for them. And I think next year we can expect a lot more from this team. And of course, you've got Fernando Alonso in there. You can't have anybody works to learn from and help you develop and get something going. Whether he sticks around next year or not, he wants to. I think he knows that that's possibly another world championship shot for him. But yes, I think definitely a team to look out for in the sense of how they're going to progress and just how much closer to the front they're going to get throughout the year.
Yeah, 100%. So it's the Alpine A521 Esteban Ocon, who, yes, is getting better and better, but he's now teamed up with Fernando Alonso. The one thing about Alonso, Gary, his maturity. I think he's coming back to Formula One with a completely different understanding of what is required, and hopefully Alpine Renault can give him the resources and the vehicle that allows him to go and challenge. He battled with McLaren and with Honda. He's back to where he's won world championships in terms of Renault. And we know that this man, just give him the right machinery, is outstanding.
No, look, and there's the best one of the best racing drivers ever. On track. The big thing now is, has Fernando at this age come to a point where he knows what it takes to build a team around himself? And I think that's the one thing that I want to see him able. I think he's fearless. I think he's fast. I think he's all those things. But in the back end, can he put that all together?
Especially when things are not going fantastically. I think that's been his downfall. He hasn't been able to sit there and take the bad together with the good as well. I think he's matured enough. I think he's going to teach Ocon a lot, and I think Ocon's also going to push him. Ocon needs somebody who he can go out there and push.
Well, listen, I actually, to be honest, I hope Ocon actually steps up to the plate this year, because the guy, I'm going to be honest, I don't think he really impressed last year.
Not a lot.
He was on occasion quicker than or close to Ricciardo, but Ricciardo, I think, definitely had his number. There's no doubt
without
about that, as far as I'm concerned. So, Ocon was highly rated in the Force One, or whatever it was called in those days, with Perez. Has great races with Perez, but let's hope that he can learn from Alonso and take himself to the next step, because he needs to. I don't think he's where he needs to be right now.
Yeah, I hear you. Getting lots of comments that are coming through here, which is terrific. So keep them coming through, and of course the answer to the question we'll go through in a short while. Now, of course, the return. They didn't have a fantastic time in the world of Formula One before, but they are one of the most prestigious, magnificent, sexy brands in the world, and that is Aston Martin.
Yeah.
I mean, just to have the name Aston Martin, the car looks magnificent, and I must say it looks magnificent in the pictures, but watching in the testing, I was like, I couldn't really make out. The green looks a little bit too dark for me, but Aston Martin back in Formula One, Gary, just the name exudes such passion and sexiness.
No, absolutely. It's what Formula One needed as well.
Yes.
It was a brand like this in Formula One, and it's all worked out from that point of view. I think the fact we got Lance Stroll heading up that team, I think Lawrence Stroll, sorry.
Sure, he's a tough guy.
Tough guy. But, you just look at his career and what he's done in business, etc., and you've got to believe that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I think just maybe a breath of fresh air for Vettel. I think Vettel last year, without doubt, came off the hardest season he's ever had in Formula One. I don't think Ferrari looked after him the way they should have.
Not at all.
Last year. And I think this may just give him a new opportunity. But let's see, it's also an opportunity for Stroll to just show people how quick he actually is. I mean, the guys come under a huge amount of fire. I mean, listen, not everybody's dad goes and buys them a Formula One team to go racing.
Sure.
It's happened, and it's well documented and publicized. This is an opportunity to show the world that he's actually as quick as a 4-time world champion.
And also, don't forget, Lance Stroll's been on the podium, got second in his first season of racing. His credentials are right up there. So, sometimes don't be that harsh on Lance Stroll. The one thing that I'm a little bit concerned, Gary, they did not have a great test session. Okay. If you sit and think a year back, Racing Point came out, they looked very much like the Mercedes, came out, this car looks very much like the Mercedes, but they had a whole lot of issues. I'm hoping, and I'm hoping, if this is a swan song for Sebastian Vettel, it's going to be something that's just a little bit better than where it is. I mean, there's Lance Stroll, bottom of the timesheets, just ahead of the Haas. You've got to believe they're going to get it right. But after that, just those 3 days of testing, this might not be the stellar weekend that could happen for Aston Martin. Yeah. Maybe they just want to get through it.
Well, I agree with you. And you sort of get the feeling that they're going to be sort of doing well if they get into the top 10 in qualifying. That's my view. But listen, we may be totally wrong. We don't know what the trends are going to be going into the weekend. But you do get that impression. But I think for me, it's just the inter-team battle there.
Yes,
Stroll and Sebastian Vettel. You've got two very different career paths. Sebastian Vettel definitely at the end of his Formula One career, although he's still very young. You've got to say,
exactly, he's only 33.
Young, but Stroll also wants to prove a point. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, listen, I wish it well. I hope it goes well for Aston Martin. Now, it's not often you would ever say these words, Gary. The dark horse of Formula One. Is it the Ferrari SF21? I mean, 2020 was just an annus horribilis when it comes to the world of Formula One and Ferrari. And we heard rumblings from Mika Salo coming.
But let me just jump in here. Sorry, I'm interrupting. You said to me last year, you said, I'm telling you now, these guys are being punished for the indiscretion from 2019. And I was like, you know what? I know there's conspiracy theories and there's wrangling out there, but I can't believe that's the case. And you were actually spot on with it because, as you said, Mika Salo, and you can carry on from here, but you were spot on.
There's no other, to me, there's no other way of trying to understand how Ferrari lost all of that power and weren't allowed to get any of it back, besides the fact of basically being hit on the hands by the FIA or Formula One and said, listen, you're going to have to just suck it up in 2020. It's hypothetical, but anyway, it's done. We've seen improvement in the straight line speed of Ferrari and specifically Alfa Romeo. We do not know how fast this Ferrari is as yet. We also don't know if they've fixed the aerodynamic issues that they had of 2020. But a lot of those aerodynamic issues they had of 2020 because of the lack of power.
Mm-hmm.
They were expecting more power, which would have given them less drag. So we'll only find out over the course of this weekend and, of course, the rest of the season. But this lineup, Gary, is just fantastic. Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc. Everyone talks Charles Leclerc, Charles Leclerc, Charles Leclerc. And yes, he is brilliant, and we know he's brilliant. But don't discount this guy on the left.
Look,
this guy can do stuff.
I think he can do the business, but I'm gonna go with this as the classic Ferrari driver pairing.
Okay.
And last year and the year before, it didn't work out quite that well because Leclerc wasn't supposed to be as quick as he was.
Quick as Vettel.
So let's see. I think in this period they've got Leclerc, is undoubtedly, for me, if you look at Ferrari's history, is the number one driver.
Yeah.
You know, and there'll never be an admission as to but we know how it works at Ferrari. Carlos Sainz, I think, good enough to certainly be a driver that's going to take points and score points on a regular basis. So if you think back over the time, I mean, Michael Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, Fernando Alonso, Felipe Massa.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
that's how it's been.
That's how it is.
But it is also the first time. I was trying to work this out, and maybe if you're watching, you can tell me. But I think this is the first time since 1996 that Ferrari do not have a world champion in the car.
Yeah.
I think since Schumacher,
right?
Michael
Schumacher, I think so. Yeah. Well, the year Kimi Raikkonen, he won the championship at the end of that year.
So So I'm saying, then there afterwards we had Alonso,
correct.
Then we had Vettel.
Yeah.
So this year it's the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, those are just stats.
Yeah.
They just.
But
stats.
I rate Leclerc. I think Leclerc is a superstar, and I think he's going to certainly do.
And this could well be the dark horse of the Formula One 2021 season. It's bizarre to say it, but there it is. Okay, let's move on. The next team is the Haas Team, a brand new driver lineup. There we go, completely different colors. And those colors, amazingly, are the same colors of the United States, but also of Russia. Isn't that bizarre? They've got huge Russian money. They've got two brand new rookie drivers in a car where they have stipulated that there is no development on this 2021 car because they are focusing everything for 2022.
Yeah.
Now, you've got Nikita Mazepin, who is, without a doubt, in everything that I've ever watched in the world of Formula One, the most hated person in the world. More so than Timo Glock in Brazil when Lewis Hamilton passed him to deny Felipe Massa. This guy has had some indiscretions off the track as well as on the track. I think he has got a very steep road to learn. And Gary, if he does make mistakes in the track, he's going to get lambasted.
Exactly. And unfortunately,
he's in for a hiding.
Probably the most infamous rookie to ever arrive in Formula One. I think it's safe to say that if it wasn't for the financial backing, he wouldn't have been in Formula One right now.
Correct.
But nonetheless, it's keeping the team going. It's what the team needs. And listen, also a quick driver. There's no two ways about it. Even GP2 and an aggressive driver as well. And I think that's going to be the big thing for me here with this team is to see, is Mazepin going to get himself into any dramas? Because in GP2, he took no prisoners. He really went at it. He's a super aggressive driver. Yeah. How's he going to be in Formula One? In Formula One is going to irritate a few people if he does what he did in GP2.
Without a doubt, he's going to irritate a lot of people off the track as well. One thing you must realize, his money just didn't get in there. You have to have a super license to get into Formula One, and he achieved that through his results in Formula 2. The one thing, Gary, I must say, I give a bit of an edge on Mazepin when it comes to qualifying over Mick Schumacher, but I give, in terms of race craft, I would say Schumacher's the better.
Well, let's see how that goes. And I think, you mentioned the fact that there's no development on this car. And just getting back to the driver front, I don't think that this is something that Mick Schumacher and his management team would have overlooked. And I said, knowing how Mick sort of brought himself through the previous categories, it took him till the second year to really get on with it. Yes, quick enough in the first season, but the second year was when it really counted.
Correct.
So, and I don't think they've looked at it any differently yet.
Unbelievable. Jeez, I'm looking at the time. Man, we're running out of time, but we're going to go through it. All right. Another dark horse, and I tell you, a team that I say watch out for, the McLaren MCL35M. This car, quick out of the blocks, great design. And Gary, when you look at the makeup of this team, Zach Brown, Andreas Seidel, Andreas Stella, James Key.
Yeah, it's a proper team. You've got Mercedes power in the back of that car now. I mean, there's no doubt why Daniel Ricciardo made the decision
100%.
to move to the team. This is a team on the up. They've shown that they can bring themselves back together. I mean, everybody thought, it was going to be the Alonso era again with Honda. It didn't work out. Yes, the engine was no good at that particular time and frustrated everybody. All believed that Ron Dennis was the be-all and end-all of McLaren. I mean, it's a great team. And a driver pairing that we're looking at there. Norris, we know is quick. Ricciardo, we know is quick. This is a strong team.
Unbelievable. And listen, number one, they're going to be the two funny characters. But on track, these guys are really going to go for it. This team is definitely a team to watch very, very carefully. The one thing that I was very, very happy to notice in their testing, Gary, new engine in the back of that car, that there are always going to be some intricate little details of pipes and this, that, and whatever. They seem to be very, very reliable. I hope I'm not a commentator's curse, but they were reliable over the testing weekend. Watch out for them. I think they're going to give everyone a little bit of a scare.
I think so too.
Okay, then we get into, of course, the champions over the last 7 years, and that, of course, is Mercedes. That is the W11 on the left, the new W12 on the right, and same driver pairing, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas. Lewis Hamilton going for an unprecedented, perhaps 8th World Drivers' Championship. Gary, love him or hate him, and people, need to get over whatever he does off the track, on the track. This is one of the great, great racing drivers of all time.
Exactly. And again, and I always, on the track, I always says one thing, and yes, he's put some stellar performances together over the years. One race that he shouldn't have scored points in races, perhaps that he shouldn't have. But also, I mean, he knew what he needed to win World Championships with, and he went out and he made that happen with Mercedes. Yes, it was a shrewd move to move there in the beginning, and it's just worked wonders for him. But he's kept it together, and he's done what he needs to do to win the championships. And Hamilton's out there to win Grand Prix, as you should if you're driving in Formula 1 or any racing or any sport or whatever it is. You're out there to win, and he's made sure that that's happened. So in his own way, he's created his own legacy with that. Maybe not a Schumacher type legacy where he's taken a team from nothing and built it up, but he's taken a team that's been capable of winning, and he's won.
100%. The other big question, Gary, of course, you've got Valtteri Bottas. He's no slow coach. He had a little bit of, he wasn't that lucky or whatever. He has to beat Lewis Hamilton. And I mean, he's a great racing driver, but man, to try and beat these guys.
What I'm going to say probably doesn't sound very complimentary. Yes, he's a quick driver, but I don't believe that he's got the resolve of Nico Rosberg.
Get a sense of humor, Valtteri.
Take the fight to Hamilton. Can he do it? Rosberg did. And that's why Rosberg retired at the end of the year, because he knew that he gave it.
He was finished.
That he could do.
Exactly.
Emotionally, physically, everything you've done. And I don't know if Bottas has got that available to him. It doesn't sound great, but unfortunately now you're comparing two drivers that are right at the top of the game. You're fighting for world championship. You've got a world championship winning car, world championship winning team behind you. Unfortunately, now you're going to be criticized for the minor things that are not working for you. I mean, put him in another car would be fantastic. Everybody will help.
Exactly.
Rain praise on him. Yeah. Unfortunately, up against Hamilton.
Yeah, 100%. Now, just a question which comes from Fani regarding Mercedes. Last year we saw Lewis step out of the one race. George Russell stepped in. And there's a question, and I've heard about it. I haven't watched it on Netflix, but I do believe that in Netflix Drive to Survive, they do not cover the George Russell story driving for Mercedes. The only reason I can think of that is that Netflix most probably weren't there on the day. We know that the COVID situation was crazy. So that's what I would say. I don't think there's anything sinister about it at all. I would hope not.
Well, let's hope not. But it is Formula One at the end of the day. And there's no doubt that Russell in that Grand Prix, gave Hamilton something to think about. There's no two ways about it. But, he's now the president of the GPDA.
Yes.
Which is, quite interesting. So obviously highly rated by his peers as well, which is
correct
important in Formula One. And a driver that you've got to believe. I mean, Bottas has got to be. He's the guy that's the most nervous right now.
100%. I mean, he's got to be sitting and going, well, where do I go from here? I mean, I've gone from Mercedes. Am I going to land up at Haas or am I going to land up at Ferrari or Red Bull? So there we go. Okay, let's get into the last two teams. Red Bull Racing. Here we go. It is the RB60B. My word, how are those colors? Oh, it's the same as every other one, but it's divine. The car's incredible. Adrian Newey's done a lot on this car, and Honda have done a lot. Gary, this car was quick out of the blocks in testing. Max went out there and got the most out of the car in every situation, whether it was worn tires, high fuel, or the opposite. Went out and did everything. I was very interested to note that Sergio Perez, who's the new driver who's replacing Albon, has come out and said he can understand why people have found this car a little bit difficult to drive. I think it just shows you the talent of a guy like Max Verstappen being able to move this car the way that he gets it.
You know what? It's fast for him, and as I always said, fast cars are not easy cars to drive. And Max is just. There's no doubt the team's built around Max.
Yeah,
I think you don't have to debate that. But what I want to see, and I think everybody wants to see this. You want to see the battle between Max and Lewis. That's what we're praying to happen this year.
But what we also need, Gary, you want the battle between Max and Lewis, but you also want Valtteri and Perez to be there, so that if Max gets in between the two Mercedes, but he's now got Bottas and then 3 Ferraris and then his teammate down in 8th, that doesn't help. Yeah. It's a team sport. So Perez, this is make or break for Sergio Perez.
What a great opportunity.
But what, and thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah.
I think he got a raw deal at McLaren.
Yes.
I think he really did. And I think he's done an outstanding job with Force India through the years and whatever. And he won last year. And it's thoroughly deserved. He's got the maturity now, Gary. He knows how to race wheel to wheel with the guys. So I think this is a really, really exciting pairing.
It is. And I think, as you quite rightly said, if he can just be close enough to Max to take points from everybody else, I think he's done a fantastic job in the team. And I don't think he's going to be replaced next year if he does that, because they haven't had a good run, Red Bull, with their junior program of late.
No.
It hasn't been anybody that's really come out and set the world alight apart from Max over the last couple of years. So I'm going to be interested to see how he handles it.
It's going to be great. The final team of the 2021 Formula One season is the Williams team. Brand new livery, which is the picture unfortunately doesn't do justice, but it's quite cool, and it's got these long lines on the back over the engine cover. It makes the car look a lot bigger. New management. They've got new directors. I just hope they're going to be more competitive. I do believe they will be more competitive than Haas, that's for sure. And Russell impressed me, Gary, where in some of the testing sessions, I've got a feeling this guy's going to be able to race. We all know he can race at the front, but he's going to be able to race in this Williams in round about that 12th and 13th position.
Well, that's it. And it puts him in a position to qualify in the top 10 on occasion if the car is going well enough, which I think is what he needs to be doing. There's no doubt he's chasing a Mercedes seat. We all know that. We spoke about it just now. We saw it happen last year. And he's just got to keep on that on that program and just pursue that seat. But I think Latifi, I think he'll certainly have. He hasn't been as bad as I thought he'd be. I've got to be honest with you. But he was pretty quick. But Russell, he's
up against Russell. That's the thing.
It's a super quick driver.
Latifi in any other team would be.
That's it.
You up against one of the greatest Formula 2 champions ever.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Latifi, yes, but he does know that he's going to have to up his game as well. Those are the 20 drivers. Those are the 10 teams for Formula 1 2021. The dark horses, funnily enough, Ferrari. And my hot pick has got to be McLaren. Besides Mercedes and Red Bull, McLaren, I think, are the guys you're going to have to watch. Okay, listen, we are running out of time and we've still got quite a bit to get through. So let's get into our trivia for this evening's show. All right, let's have a look at those two questions, Gary. And you got such a beautiful story about this. March the 25th, significant date in Formula One history. It was on this day in 1984. A young driver made his debut. So I want to go through some of the correct answers before you tell us your story. Sitembiso, nice to hear from you. You got it right on the money. Mario, correct. Andre Else got it correct. The second question, by the way, who was the only posthumous Formula One world champion? I'm just going to go through some of them that have come through here. Paolo Baldi, nice to hear from you from KZN. good to hear. And then just a whole lot of other greetings, and great to have everyone back. So thanks very, very much. I will go through all of those. A couple have come through on the WhatsApp line. Mohammed Mula, well done, sir. You got that correct. I don't have your name here. If you are going to send a WhatsApp, please give me your name as well. But well done to 0825. No, I won't give up the number. Don't worry. Another one got it also correct. No, it's not Martin Brundle. And it wasn't Juan Manuel Fangio, and it wasn't Kimi either. But the first question, March the 25th, 1984, young driver, made his debut. Tell us your story.
Well,
as you saw it
at the South African Grand Prix at Kyalami, you know. And look, my big memory from that race was, I was standing in Park Formato with my dad after the race, and Senna got out that car. And it was hot as South Africa is at that time of the year.
Yeah.
And Senna got out the car and passed out, basically. And, you know, he would have known what he was going to go on to become. But I think, you know, from that, he realised that he needs to become one of the fittest drivers out there. And he certainly took fitness to a new level in Formula One. And we all know what Senna became. So, made his Grand Prix debut in South Africa at the Grand Prix at Kyalami.
On March the 25th, Ayrton Senna. There we go. I think we've got a picture of the late, great Ayrton Senna. He would have celebrated his 61st birthday the other day. Can you believe it?
Jeez.
Yeah. And he left us a long time ago. The second question, who is the only posthumous Formula One world champion? Okay, he was a racing driver. It's quite coincidental that both of these racing drivers lost their lives at Italian circuits. One's at Monza and one at Imola. But a guy also won Le Mans, which I wasn't aware of.
Jochen Rindt.
Yeah.
I just let out the name there. But
there you go. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Jochen Rindt, the only posthumous Formula One racing driver, but also won Le Mans, and a very, very close friend of Bernie Eccleston.
Yeah.
As well. So there we go. Those are our little trivia questions. We'll bring them in all of the shows as well. Gary, we run out of time. Let's go. This weekend, Bahrain, first race. Last time we raced there, Red Bull won. Which was only a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
There we go. There's the circuit. It's a great circuit. There's some great overtaking. It's a sort of night race. Just to let you know, the tires that are on allocation, the C2, the C3, the C4, all of the drivers get the same tires. You cannot choose what you want in terms of, I want 3 hards, 8 mediums.
Yeah.
Everyone gets the same tires, and that was because of COVID rules from last year. A couple of overtaking situations. They have done testing, Gary, but there have been sandstorms. We can expect the track to be a little bit green, but a fun track as well.
Yeah, I think a fun track, but also must say that is the track that we used for the first Bahrain Grand Prix last year, not the second one we saw Russell racing on the oval, if you like.
The oval, yeah.
So it is a great track, a couple of overtaking opportunities. Listen, great that we tested it as well. So we've got somewhat of an idea. So if you judge on what's happening in testing, we've got an interesting Grand Prix coming up.
Yeah, it is going to be great. You want to watch it, of course, we've got the TV times that'll be happening. These are Central African times for you. So you can check it out. I'm like sitting and going, geez, we still got about 17 hours before first free practice. So it's still a long time. I'm just trying to figure out what those times are. I think it's 1:30 tomorrow. Also this year, Gary, all of the sessions reduced by 1 hour, by half an hour. So it's an hour-long first free practice 1, free practice 2, free practice 3, quali, and then the race. We haven't touched on the possibility of the sprint races because we'll wait until some kind of decision is made. Gary, any pick, any idea, you want to have any go at who you think is going to be top of the timesheets?
Look, this time last year, I kind of would have said Mercedes-Benz, no doubt. This year, I'm not saying that. I've got to believe Red Bull in the game, and I'm gonna hang myself, or put myself, wait for the Hamilton Max tussle. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to it as well. I just think Red Bull, watch out for them this weekend and this year as well. So many lovely comments, and it's so great for us to be back with you as well on the F1 PitBox. A huge thank you to Henk and Fritz, who do all of our technical stuff for us, and I just want to say a huge shout out to our good friend Matt, who made our great opening and closing as well for the shows as well, which is brilliant. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, F1 Sasha, there's the F1 PitBox webpage as well, f1pitbox.com. You can check that out. And of course, follow us on raceday.tv on Facebook and all of the other social media channels. Sure. Thank you, Henk. Thank you, Fritz. Gary, always great to see you. I think we should have a glass of wine now.
Yeah.
Enjoy this weekend's racing. Welcome back, Formula One. Let's go racing.
This is the F1 PitBox.